Good morning. I'm Claire Schleicher, use she, her pronouns, and I'm on the member of the Board of Directors here. Welcome to White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church. We are a community of youth, adults, and children of many diverse theologies, held together by covenant, not creed. Together we share the values of courage, reverence, and compassion. May you know deep welcome and belonging in this place. To share a request for today's meditation, please place it in the chat box before the opening hymn or add it to our meditation bowl. The meditation bowl is over here in the Soul Work Center, where people of all ages can also find activities to help them engage with today's service. Welcome, visitors. We are so glad you're here this morning. Please join us today for a 12-minute intro and tour. You can find Jean over here by the fabric wall after today's service. If you're visiting with children, we do offer spiritual growth opportunities for our children and youth at this 11 a.m. service. At both services, we offer nursery care. As always, your children are welcome to stay with you during the service as we welcome the noises, movements, and joys that little ones bring. Let's take a moment and wave to those who are online as well. Welcome, Zoomers. Once per year during March, we ask all of our members and our friends to really think about what they can give financially to the church during the next fiscal year and pledge that amount. That way, our board can create a budget to fit the anticipated contributions of its members and friends. And this year, we need each other now more than ever. We have a few short videos for you that we'd like to share. And this morning, one of our screens here is not working. So if you'd like to watch the videos, please feel free to shift over in this direction so that you can see this screen.
My name is Lennon. I go by he, him pronouns, and the reason why I come to church is I like helping with the kids. I like seeing them grow up and get more adapted to the current state of the world, and helping them transition into being older and more developed in their brains and understand a lot more is what I love about WBUUC is ladybug rugs. I love those especially.
Lennon, can I ask you a question? What's your favorite thing about coming to church?
I love my mom and the ladybug carpet and all the music. What ladybug carpet?
I pledge because I like to see the world be a better place. I have this annoying mentality whenever I wake up that today is going to be a better day than yesterday. But my favorite thing about this church is definitely the community. That's it.
Hi, I'm Tom Roycraft. I don't use pronouns, but I've been with this church for over a couple decades, certainly been with the choir for that time. And why do I come and love this church? It's community. It's where it started, where the number of people in this church were significantly lower, and it's grown, I think, due to community and outreach. I've always get picked on that. My wife will always say, whenever she comes in the room, they always know that I'm a Unitarian, like I spread the word, as it were. So that's basically why I like it, being here. Obviously, the music program is important, and certainly RE.
My name is Janelle Fischler. I go by she, her. My spouse, Roseanne, and I have belonged to this church for quite a few years back, before gay marriage was legal. So we've been married here twice, actually, once illegally and once legally. And we love WBUUC. We have why wouldn't we pledge? It has been such a wonderful support system and community, and the social causes are worthy of our dollars. I can't think of many places I would rather have my dollars go to. My favorite thing about the church is the support we've received through hard times and good times. We have found joy here. We have found solace here. We lost our son at 34 years old in the past year, and people here just really want to talk about him. They really want us to share our grief and support us, and that has been huge. And since that time, since Jeremy passed, we joined the choir and really have enjoyed that facet. We're both musicians and talked for years. This choir is so good, let's do it. And that has been so healing for us. So healing, community, joy, love, so much. Can't say enough.
Welcome to our church. Together, we grow our souls and serve the world in love.
I'm Reverend Jessica, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm the lead minister of this congregation. Welcome and thank you, Harmonia. How many years have you been singing together? Someone? Many. 14 or 15. What a gift for us this morning, so thank you. I invite you to receive the words of our call to worship. Come in. Come into this place which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths, fears and anxieties, loves and hopes. For here you need not hide nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where we can touch and be touched, heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected. Come into this place. Together we make it a holy place.
I'm Russell Rogers, he, him, and I serve on your board. If today's chalice lighting sounds familiar to you, it's because I gave the very same message in 2019, just after I became a new member here. I dusted it off this week because someone asked me why I pledge, and I was curious if the same answer still fits after all the changes that we've had, and it does. So this is like a time capsule reading from 2019 me, when the pledge theme then was all in. I'm a new member who wants to be all in. You don't know me, but let me introduce two things about me and pledges. First, I'm cheap. My parents were children of the Depression and both accountants, and they taught me to overthink money. Not only does my wife cut my hair to save money, every so often I calculate just for fun how much her haircuts have saved. Depositing the price of regular haircuts at about 4% over 38 years, it's about 25 grand. I realize that somebody who tracks haircut savings just for fun is both cheap and weird. I embrace it. My parents gave me a second money habit. They were penny-pinching Mormon accountants who wired me from childhood to tithe generously. Before I got to spend any income, even my allowance, they first counted X% into a tithing envelope that went to the bishop, and I never saw it again. I didn't think of it as my money, and that's a useful fiction that I've tried to maintain since leaving that church. After leaving the church, giving away 10% of pre-tax income became almost fun. It was like spending Monopoly money that didn't belong to me, yet I could finally choose causes that mattered most to me. I realized that some are not able to give, whereas for me, it's kind of a routine baked in from childhood. As one lucky enough to have money already earmarked as tithing, the question for me is not a gut-wrenching whether to give, but where. As the cheap son of Mormon accountants, I give cheerfully but carefully, scrutinizing options to do the most good per dollar. My key pledge question is this: if I want to do the most good per dollar, how can I justify giving to my church in a rich white suburb when it may come at the expense of homeless children on the brink of death? To answer my question, I wrote an essay titled, "Why I Give to My Church While People Are Dying." It covers 5 reasons, and I'll hit just a few of them. The most basic is a covenant to support this work and pay for benefits received. Although the church is a charity for tax purposes, it's also a direct service provider to me. I benefit from it at least as much as from a gym membership or a therapist visit. Our Church of the Earth may be gilded in rust, but it's also brick and mortar with utility bills, empty coffee pots, and employment agreements. I am party to those obligations, and I pledge partly because I owe my share and I can afford it. But that obligation only gets me to a bare minimum pledge to keep the lights on. I'd like to read 3 reasons that make me give beyond the minimum. In a nutshell, pledges respond to acute suffering, address long-term systemic causes, and support personal peace. First, this church is part of my response to acute suffering. We respond to short-term crises. More than one person here has told me that the church has saved their life. If the crisis is shivering children, we hand out coats and staff shelters. We provided sanctuary to a resident family. We support Afghan refugees today. We sponsor the North Star Outreach Center for homeless youth, and our members provide countless hours at charities. Giving is not a choice between either addressing immediate suffering or giving to my church. It's both and. Giving here is part of my response to today's suffering. Second, the church helps address systemic causes of suffering. We build long-term refuge. Feeding a child today is first aid, but we also help address underlying issues like poverty, poor aid policy, and racism. We recharge activists, influence votes, nurture empathy in children, and shape institutions for good. Easing suffering requires both crisis response and sustained work on the roots. The choir sang a song called Prayer for Peace back in 2019 that reminded me of my third reason to support church even while children are dying. My pledge is an investment in the idea of prayer in the heart that's mentioned in the prayer. Peace in the heart that's mentioned in the song and the prayer. And to paraphrase the lyrics, it goes, if there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. Peace in the nations depends on peace in the cities, which depends on peace between neighbors, which depends on peace in the home. If there is to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart. Pledging supports my personal peace, my own sense of integrity. This is my part to play, my small contribution to a greater good. Giving honors the best within me, the desire to make the world better in the most effective ways I know. I still give directly to help suffering children, but I'm also proud of giving to my church without apology. I light the same chalice today as in 2019 to doing good better because we're together.
Please rise in body or spirit and join in our opening words. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Please remain risen for our opening song, Loosen, Loosen by Allie Halpert. And I think we're going to get some help. Who's helping? The whole group? Okay, great. Do you need to come up front and give instructions? No, you got it. Okay. If you don't know this song, receive it. You will know it pretty quickly. It's easy to, and the words will be on this screen. Sorry about this screen. It's taken a day off. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Keep going. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Let go, let go, let go.
Good morning. I'd like to invite those young and young at heart forward for our story this morning. And if you choose to receive our story right from where you are, just take a breath and be present in this space. Come on forward. My name is Amy. I'm your Director of Religious Education. My pronouns are she, her. And this morning's story is called Chaitra and Maitra, and it can be found in a story anthology called Katha Sagar, Ocean of Stories, Hindu Wisdom for Every Age by Sarah Conover and Abhi Janamanchi, and it's adapted here for you all this morning. So once upon a time, not all that long ago, a teacher had two very devoted students named Chaitra and Maitra. Well, Chaitra and Maitra could not have been more different from one another. You see, Maitra was quick and ambitious and impulsive. He tried to be the very first to anticipate his teacher's every wish and be the first to fulfill it, sometimes even elbowing Chaitra right out of the way from their teacher whenever he could. No matter the words of wisdom the teacher said to him, Maitra, running about, vigilant and determined to be the guru's favorite, sometimes seemed to miss the point. We don't know anyone like this, do we? Maybe a little bit ourselves sometimes. Chaitra, pointing fingers over here, Chaitra, for his part, was thoughtful and contemplative in nature, and he never acted impulsively as he took time to deeply consider things. We know people like this too, right? Maybe sometimes ourselves, every once in a while, even though we're a little like Maitra too. One day, their teacher decided he'd had enough. If words couldn't reach Maitra, perhaps action would. So he concocted a lesson that would put them both to the test. So he gave them each one single coin and brought them each to two empty rooms. They gave them each got an empty room. And the teacher said, with one humble coin, you must fill your room. Well, Chaitra stood there, his interest piqued, and thought over the challenge. But Maitra took off at a sprint for the village to see if he could be the first to succeed. Of course, Maitra soon discovered that you can't really buy that much with one single coin. But another idea struck him. So feeling very clever indeed, he sought out a cart full of garbage to take with him back to the room. The garbage seller, puzzled by the young man's agitation, but delighted to be paid for his trash, agreed and happily drove the cart to their room, Maitra giving directions. When they arrived at the destination, they encountered Chaitra just now leaving for the market. He smiled kindly and nodded toward Maitra, held up his coin with a smile, and continued on his way. Maitra guffawed. Too bad for Chaitra. He was too slow. Delighted with himself, Maitra unloaded the cart easily filled the room from floor to ceiling with ruined baskets, smelly, worn-out shoes, slimy banana peels, and rotten vegetables. Standing in the doorway, surveying the lot, he swelled up a bit with pride. He did this all in less than an hour. No doubt the guru would soon show up and praise his accomplishment. Maitra basked outside in the sunshine and in his self-admiration, knowing that his task was complete. All the time Maitra had been gone, Chaitra had been sitting in his room and meditated on the challenge. It was a tough challenge indeed. His mind having become quiet, the solution came to him just before Maitra's return. And so Chaitra walked to the village market, where he found an old man selling the three things he sought: a matchbox, an incense stick, and an oil lamp. Unhurried, he returned to his room, where he lit the sandalwood incense and then the lamp. A warm glow and lovely scent filled the entire room. Chaitra then sat back down to meditate. Meanwhile, Maitra's impatience made it impossible for him to be still. Have you ever felt like that? Yeah, impatient? Yes. He paced about, mumbling and angry. Where was the teacher? If he didn't arrive soon, how would he even know Maitra succeeded first? Weren't cleverness and quickness the qualities he wanted to teach in his students? A few hours later, when the guru came back to inspect the rooms, he turned on his heels without even entering Maitra's room. Why do you think that was? It was too smelly. He shook his head in disbelief, chuckled, and then walked over to Chaitra's room, Maitra following on his heels. Maitra's room was softly illuminated. It was filled with fragrances of sandalwood and jasmine. The teacher stepped inside and encouraged Maitra to come in too. Sitting in contemplation, Maitra opened his eyes. What I offered you both was indeed a challenging task. Maitra, you filled your room quickly and easily, yet you could hardly stand to be in the room of your own creation. Chaitra, after much contemplation in the face of this seemingly impossible challenge, you chose to surround yourself with simple beauty. Chaitra said nothing. Maitra cast his eyes down. We must choose carefully, said the teacher. We must take time to listen to what is in our hearts, no matter how hard the task that faces us. And that's our story this morning. Thank you so much for listening. We're going to sing Our Children and Their Teachers on Their Way. The hymn is Go Lifted Up. I invite you to rise in body or spirit.
I invite you to join me for a moment of prayer and centering some of the things that people in this community are carrying. We have about 39 households online, about 160 people in this room, and we're all carrying a lot right now. So let's just take a breath together. At the end of my prayer this morning, we will have a moment of silence, and then we will sing hymn number 396 in your gray hymnal 2 times through. So if you want to open your hymnals now, because it won't be announced again, 396. The words will also be on the screen, but especially for those on this side, 396. Or you can just receive the song as well. This morning, we lift up International Women's Day. We name in this space Teresa Malkiel, who was a Russian immigrant who started the International Women's Day in New York in 1909. She was a socialist working for change, a garment worker who traveled around speaking of socialist causes and also spoke to dismantling the white supremacy culture that she saw in social justice movements. So we lift up Teresa Malkiel this morning. We lift up her memory. We lift up all of the Muslim people in this congregation and who are our neighbors who are celebrating Ramadan. May their fast be filled with peace and love. We lift up the people this morning of Gaza who are having resources withheld yet again. We pray for lasting peace. We pray for them to have the resources they need to be able to rebuild their lives. This morning we hold Diane Carlson, who asks for prayers of healing for close friends. Helen Gallagher asks us to pray for Helen's 34-year-old friend Elizabeth, who is dying of breast cancer and has 2 very young kids. We hold Julie and Joe Wild in care this morning, who ask us to hold Shirley Wild in love and care as she navigates a significant health crisis. We lift into prayer this morning Ashley's mom, Teresa, as they await cancer biopsy results. And we hold a member of this congregation in deep care as they mourn their 3 classmates who died in an avalanche on Tuesday. All of them were married, were young children, holding them and their families and all who loved them in care. Now is the time when you can lift into prayer those you would like to name in this space this morning and hold in care. May all of these names on our lips and our hearts be held in the greater circle of love. And we know that our hearts are big enough to hold joys and sorrows. So we also celebrate with Ashley Corvin, Ashley's new promotion this week. May we find the space to hold the joy alongside the sorrow and know there is room for it all. Our prayer this morning is from Beth Monholland. I invite you to cast your eyes down or close them or gaze out at our winter springscape as we receive these words. Spirit of life and love, holy ember that burns in our deepest, darkest places, let us feel the warmth of our connections today in the face of our human tendencies towards cruelty. In our constant turning to isolation and disconnection, let us practice being ferociously kind, unashamedly vulnerable, savagely soft. Let us love tenderly the parts of ourselves we reject and then project onto others. Let us all remember we are all made of water and stardust, that all of us are hurt and healing, and that we can do only what it is in our hands to do. Let us embrace all the embodied contradictions and the ever unfolding now of this whole, holy burning world. Let us love with wide open, wanton indulgence each and every life we encounter, even when, especially when, it's hard. May it be so, and amen.
In community news announcements, registration is still open for our Raising Racial Consciousness workshops. The first one will happen next Thursday, March 20th from 5 to 8 p.m., and dinner will be provided. Please sign up soon so we can plan accordingly. This Wednesday, all are welcome at our community meal at 5:30, followed by choir practice, intergenerational game night, and parents group. This afternoon, there will be a Membership 2 class from 12:30 to 2 p.m. If you've attended Membership 1 class in the past and are ready for the next class, or if you want to jump right in and learn more, you are invited. Snacks and childcare are provided. Please see Reverend Jack if you have more questions. The money from today's offering collection will support the mission of this congregation to grow our souls and serve the world in love. There are a couple of ways that you can give today. You can place cash or check in the offertory basket. You can give on the website, or you can use the text to give feature. The number will be on our screen momentarily, but I'll say it here too, just in case you can't see the screen. The number is 651-615-5551. However you give, thank you for your generosity and your faith in this life we live together. The offering will now be gratefully collected.
My name is Elisa Peterson, and my pronouns are she, her. I am a member of WBUUC's Stewardship Committee, and I joined the committee for two reasons. The first is that I love fundraising. Now, before you wonder what alternate universe I grew up in to actually enjoy asking people for money, let me tell you why. For the majority of my career, I've worked for nonprofit organizations and supported their fundraising efforts. Over and over again, I've heard people refer to fundraising as a necessary evil that we have to do, but nobody actually enjoys doing it. But that's not how I see it at all. See, fundraising isn't actually about asking people for money. Fundraising is about getting to know people's passions, their dreams, their biggest hopes for the world. It's about connecting them to organizations that are making those things happen. And it's about inviting people to be part of something bigger than themselves, something they care deeply about, something that is moving the moral arc of the universe towards justice. Now, I don't have enough time this morning to go into how fundraising is also about the just redistribution of wealth and dismantling inequitable systems. But I truly believe that fundraising is a vehicle for us to bring about the world we hope and dream for. The second reason I joined the Stewardship Committee is the same reason why my family pledges each year. This WBUUC community is a place where we see our hopes and dreams for the future become reality. It's a place where our children are learning to be loved for who they are and who they are called to be. It's a place where we can come together with people who share our values and navigate this world through laughter, tears, and words of encouragement. And it's a place where we can listen, learn, and be inspired to work for justice and equity in our larger community. One interesting thing that I learned when I joined the Stewardship Committee is that the board sets next year's budget based on the pledges received now during the pledge drive. That's why it's so important and why you will be regularly reminded to share your giving intention before the pledge drive is over. Even if you have a monthly donation set up like our family does, you need to reconfirm your pledge or even increase your pledge if you're able. So the board has this information as they make their budget decisions. And if you have questions about how to do any of that, you can visit the stewardship table after the service. The last thing I want everyone to know about fundraising is that every gift, no matter the size, is important. It's another misconception I often hear about fundraising, which is that only the large gifts make a difference. And the reality couldn't be further from the truth. Having worked for organizations with small budgets, large budgets, and everything in between, I can promise you that every gift counts. Whatever you can give to WBUUC, no matter the size, contributes to the important work of this community. While I know I might not have converted you all to aspiring fundraisers this morning, I hope maybe you will think about it differently in the future, not as a necessary evil we have to do every year, but as a vehicle for building community support and ushering in the world we dream for. And as we continue to celebrate WBUUC's Pledge Drive this month, I invite you to join me in thinking about your passions, your dreams, your hopes for the world. Join me in thinking about how this community is working to make those things happen. And join me in thinking about what you can give to support that work. Thank you.
I will rise against all hatred while my eyes are
Who's ready to rise up? Right? You can clap. Who remembers where you were 5 years ago on March 9th? Oh, she's talking about that. 5 years ago, the congregation I was serving canceled service on that Sunday, March 9th. During that week, I was talking with congregants about our annual gala that was planned for 3 weeks later. I told them, don't worry, this pandemic will be over by then. We don't need to cancel it. Well, here we are now, 5 years later. I am no closer to being an epidemiologist. And my daughter and I just navigated another bout of COVID. This week, the New York Times had an article about the ways that COVID changed us. They said, we are living on the branch of history it created. David Wallace Wells writes that 5 years ago, we had the same president, but the United States is a different place now. He writes, America is a harsher place, more self-interested and nakedly transactional. We barely trust one another and are less sure that we owe our fellow Americans anything, let alone the rest of the world. He continues and says that we have not processed the trauma and the ways that we've been changed in the last 5 years, and that moving through that time turned us into hyper-individualists. Although we were isolating to keep each other safe, that isolation and viewing everyone as a threat fundamentally changed how we see each other. David Wallace Wells writes of how the pandemic changed our economy. U.S. debt increased, and the economic outlook increased at the same time. For the first time, happiness was not related to economic growth. Consumer sentiment dropped even though economic growth increased. So to put it plainly, we got unhappier as capitalism flourished. Personal debt increased, alcoholism and other addictions increased. That dopamine rush from receiving an Amazon package became the thing that brought us brief happiness when so many other things that brought us joy were unsafe. 5 years ago, our children were changed in ways that parents are living with now. We've seen increases in anxiety, isolation, and depression. Parents, grandparents, caregivers, I see you trying your best. This has been an incredibly hard 5 years for you. You're like, when's she getting to the hope part? She's got to give it, right? I'm going to get there. Stay with me here. So these are all the foundation blocks, all of these things that I've named for where we are right now at this place in history. All of these things played a part in supporting this nation that's so divided, that has a fascist coup taking over our government. All of these things laid the groundwork for this to be possible. And it didn't start with the pandemic. It started with the way this country was founded, with the white supremacist ideals that many in power seek to return us to. So I name all of this morning to remind you of where we've been and to remind you of what our bodies are still carrying. This is what we've lived through, what we still live through as we continue to contract COVID, as we continue to have those hypervigilant responses when someone coughs. This history is carried in us. And it's carried in people who are immunocompromised. They lived with these truths long before the pandemic. They knew how fragile their bodies were and how inaccessible the world was and is. Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. And we're here. 5 years later, and maybe you, like me, over these last 48 days of this new administration, have felt similar feelings to when reading the news at the beginning of the pandemic. That feeling of my heart racing, that feeling of doom scrolling, of knowing that I need to keep reading but dreading what I'm going to see, and feeling strangely disassociated and emotionally hooked all at the same time. That's a trauma response. I was talking to a friend of mine lately about the brain fog I've been feeling, about whether it's long COVID, age-related, parenting-related, and she said, it's fascism. So if you are struggling to keep track of details, if you're struggling to get out of bed in the morning, it's fascism. And we have been through a lot these last 5 years. Our bodies have lived through this, and they remember. Additionally, our bodies carry our own personal heartbreaks that we've had of diagnoses, of divorces, of births and deaths, of individual traumas, and the personal heartbreak of divided families reflected within our nation's politics. We have been through it, and we are going through it. So if you came to this place because you are struggling today, this week, this life, I see you. This is a place you are welcome just as you are, with a community that is not perfect, but knows that they are better together than apart. And we come to our faith communities looking for that sliver of hope to get us through the next week, sometimes desperate for it. To be reminded of all those things that changed us in the pandemic, of that feeling of being isolated and alone, to be reminded that this faith, this congregation is here to remind you of a bigger truth, that together we create meaning, connection, community, we connect each other to the divine and work for more justice and equity in the world. Many of you may remember at General Assembly this past year, we voted in new values to replace our 7 principles. And who remembers what was at the center of the values? Love. Thank you for yelling it out. We can yell it out. Love. There we go. Love that says you are welcome here. Love that says I will work on my own privilege to widen our circle of welcome. Love that says we are not perfect here, but this is our guiding value and that we are connected and responsible for each other. Love says that I will work on all of the isms that I carry in order to be a better friend to you. Love that says you matter and this world matters. That is why we're here. Love that says we practice humility, care, and generosity together. And we take that out into the world. We take that love out and we let it guide our actions 95% of the time. But it's a little hard not to be self-righteous about it, right? Like with everything that was going on in the pandemic, I was self-righteous about who was wearing masks. I felt like I could tell exactly how they were voting based on whether they were wearing masks and who wasn't, and I was very self-righteous. And now we're self-righteous about the things we have control over, with the premise of love guiding our actions, and sometimes that shows up where we shop, where we eat. This shows up in how our values are reflected in our actions. I preached in January about stopping ordering from Amazon, and I've ordered twice since then, which is a 95% decline from the year previous. And I say that not to be congratulated, but to tell you there's no one right way to do things. I know I am supporting the evil empire when I shop there, and I still will probably shop there occasionally in the future. Am I still self-righteous about the amount that I don't shop there? Yes, definitely. We all make choices of how we move in the world, and right now so many of us are angry and afraid, and it seeps out even though we try to contain it. Remember that part about not being perfect? I've been known to occasionally yell out something when driving by homophobic chicken. Yes, I do. I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect. We come here with our imperfect selves, and as the Zen master Suzuki Roshi says, all of you are perfect just as you are. I say this a lot in my sermons, and you could use a little improvement. We come here to get that nudge to improvement. I am not separate from that. To get that nudge to remember that we have a piece of the divine in us, and we're responsible for bringing the divine into being, for bringing love into being in the world, and that takes action. To be intentional about who gets our resources and try to support those organizations which reflect more of our values. This intentionality centers our hearts on that faithful, action-oriented love, together practicing grace and compassion with ourselves and each other along the way. As I mentioned in my prayer for Muslims, they are in the time of Ramadan, of centering on their spiritual practices, of putting love and their values at the center intentionally. For Christians, we're in the time of Lent, fasting, of going without in order to remember what is important. Therefore, some are choosing to boycott Target for Lent, and for some, they're not making that choice. And we're here to practice grace with each other and say, we're all just doing the best we can. And to gently remind each other that sometimes a little discomfort is tolerated for that greater good, that humility and love can help loosen that grip on anxiety and fear. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Because there are so many ways that we are powerless, we are angry and frustrated, and apathy comes knocking on our door every night. But by making small actions, whatever that looks like for each of us, it helps to kindle that flame of hope. Being in community is practicing humility and remembering it's not about me, but we, that centering love means I have to move out of the way first. A quote from poet and brilliant author Brian Doyle. All you can do is face the world with quiet grace and hope you make a sliver of difference. Humility does not mean self-abnegation, lassitude, detachment. It's more a calm recognition that you must trust in that which does not make sense, that which is unreasonable, illogical, silly, ridiculous, crazy by the measure of most of our culture. You must trust that you being the best possible you matters somehow. That trying to be an honest and tender parent will echo through centuries through your tribe. That doing your chosen work with creativity and diligence will shiver people far beyond your ken. That being an attentive and generous friend and citizen will prevent a thread or two of the social fabric from unraveling. And you must do all of this with the certain knowledge that you will never get proper credit for it. And in fact, the vast majority of things you do right will go utterly unremarked. This is what I know, that the small is huge, the tiny is vast. The small is huge, the tiny is vast. Each of you coming here on this morning is vast to the person next to you. Each of you choosing to spend this time together, whether you're online or in person, is saying, I value this faith and I value this community, and this is how I'm spending my time this morning. That is allowing that love within you, that rose within you to bloom and flourish. It's trusting that we're figuring out this human experience together. Our theme this month is trust. And as you've heard, it's our annual pledge drive campaign, the theme being, we need each other now more than ever. Although, Russell, the theme of all in still works. You filling out that pledge form is an act of trust in your staff, in your leadership, in this faith. This act of trust helps keep the lights on for the group that meets here to support families with transgender youth in them. This act of trust helps support our parent group that meets, that is a lifeline for many parents. Your act of trust helps support that small congregation in that red state that is the only brave space for certain people with marginalized identities to go. This is what your pledge does. Your pledge helps us to support us to be a place where 12 times over the last year, someone called one of your ministers and said, I need help with rent. I need a utility bill paid. I'm struggling to put food on the table. I just got a job, but I need a phone for it, and my phone bill is past due. I just got an apartment. I'm moving with my family out of a hotel, and I can't pay the deposit. Your pledges helped us to be the place where people can call for help and receive it. Your pledges help us to be part of collective care and mutual aid for our wider communities. It can be hard to see all the places that your pledges make a difference, but I want you to know that they do and that we value them and the trust placed in us. Pledging is an act of love. Pledging is saying, I see my values reflected here in this place and in this faith, as Russell and Elisa shared earlier. Pledging is an act of hope. Your holy yeses to this congregation are an act of hope. The 137 people that are signed up for the Raising Racial Consciousness workshops, which start on March 20th, that's an act of hope. And if you're thinking, oh gosh, I should join them, come on down. You can still join us. The 87 pledging units that have already submitted your pledge, thank you for your act of hope and trust in us. Thank you for those of you who are able to increase so that we can keep doing this holy, important work. So our faith can keep doing this holy, important work. So, I'm still not an epidemiologist, nor can I see 5 years into the future. I don't know where we'll be 5 years from now. I hope that many of us will still be here, and I know that some will not. I hope that we're still holding on to that hope together, and we're still reminding each other that though we are a part of living history that has told us over and over again to be hopeless, we're still holding on to hope and actively working towards it together. Dear ones, we have been through it. We are going through it. And the most important thing to remember is the power of all of us together, that all of us are needed to hold this community, to hold this faith, to hold this world together, one action of centering love at a time. I'll end with Brian Doyle's last piece that he added on to what I read earlier. This is what I know, that the small is huge, that the tiny is vast, that pain is part and parcel of the gift of joy, and that this is love, and then there's everything else. You either walk towards love or away from it with every breath you take. May we keep going towards love each day in the midst of it all. Amen. Will you please rise in body or spirit for our closing song, I Am Willing by Holly Near. The words will be on your screen. And those who are on this side, if you know it, join in. Otherwise, you can just receive it. Or you can feel free to move over, whatever your preference. And Brett's going to start us off. Thank you, Brett. I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, So lift me up to the light of change. There is hurting in my family. There is hurting in my family. There's sorrow in my town. Sorrow in my town. There's panic in the nation. Panic in the nation. There is wailing the whole world round. The whole world round. Let's sing it louder. I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. May the children see more clearly. May the children see more clearly. May the elders be more wise. The elders be more wise. May the winds of change caress us. Winds of change caress us, even though it burns our eyes. Burns our eyes. I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. I invite you to join hands with your neighbor. If you would prefer not to, feel free to put your hand on your chest. And let's sing the chorus one more time a cappella. I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. You can keep holding hands for our benediction. Our closing words are from Wayne Arneson. I invite you to shout them out after me. So repeat them after me, but feel free to just shout them with force. Take courage, friends.
Take courage, friends.
The way is often hard.
The way is often hard.
The path is never clear.
The path is never clear.
And the stakes are very high.
And the stakes are very high.
Take courage.
Take courage.
For deep down there is another truth.
Deep down there is another truth.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.
Amen. Please turn to your neighbor and invite them to coffee hour.